So while he's not necessarily at the level that I want to be at just yet, he has access to the people who are. And so I'm paying him to coach me every 2 weeks. Tomorrow we have another session as well. And that is a relationship that came out directly from a podcast interview where he didn't even ask me, he didn't try to sell me. I just asked him if he would consider coaching me for money. And there we go. We've got a coaching relationship now.
Do you find that some people ask you to coach them or support them, but I find that if I don't charge something usually, like if I don't, usually it's money. Like that's the biggest pain point, right?
Right.
I would rather have somebody spend time personally. I'd rather have somebody come in and work with some of our kids in our schools for a day and give their time, because some people's time is worth more than the money they would pay for, some of my time.
Right.
And then sometimes I'm like, yeah, no problem. Like whatever you need. Like I have this lady that's like, I have this billionaire that wants to learn about education and invest, and he wants to pay consultant. And I'm like, here's the deal. I'll help him. Like, I don't need him to pay me $1,000 for a couple hours of my time. I'd love to build a relationship with a billionaire and add value to his life. And it's worth more to me than taking money from somebody. What's your thought on that, on the whole coaching? Because I value, like my coach, I've never paid him a cent, but he understands the impact, and the last 10 years I've spent impacting lives. And so
right.
he charges a lot of other people, but for me, he's like, take me out to dinner. So I pay for $100 dinner every time we go, right?
That's awesome.
What's your thought on that?
I totally agree with you in that sense, where it really just depends, because I honestly have not done a lot of one-on-one coaching yet. And I've had podcast listeners reach out to me and ask, Chris, I want to start a podcast. Can you coach me? Can you tell me what you did, what works, what doesn't work? And I've taken on a few coaching clients, and I was like, not sure what to charge. And I probably undervalued myself. And I was like, hey, was that an okay Zoom call? I'll put the recording on Dropbox. And I feel like people value it more sometimes if there's money on the line. Like I'm paying my friend $250 an hour. I've never paid anyone that much per hour other than like, I don't know, maybe a doctor or something for if you're sick or whatever. But 250 was a number where I was like, man, like no one's going to understand in my family why I'm paying this guy that much money. Like my parents, I didn't even tell them, because they were just telling me like, why are you wasting your money? Are you getting anything out of that? But it puts my money on the line where I'm like, I better do the homework that he's giving me. Otherwise I'm just burning $500 a month. If I'm not taking action, it's on me. But on the other hand, like what you just mentioned, I just got coffee with a millionaire a week or two ago. I met him at a party through a mutual friend. They had like a baby shower thing, and they have this beautiful, huge house. Some of the neighbors from their really nice neighborhood came by. I met this huge multifamily investor guy, connected with him, got coffee with him the next day, and he offered to mentor me. He's like, man, you got a good vibe about you. I know you're going to go somewhere. I love your presence. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know. He didn't charge me. He didn't ask me for money. He extended that to me because of a certain way that he felt, like the energy is what he mentioned. And so I think it really just depends on the relationship you want to have. I may charge some people, but there are people that I'm willing to help for free. I hop on 30-minute phone calls or Zoom calls all the time without charging, without knowing where it's going to go, because I know that if I put out the value, it's going to come back somehow, some way.
Yeah, I'm with you. One thing I've learned with the kids, this generation coming up, is there has to be a deal in place. Like they want everything for nothing. There's.
It's true.
I think. I mean, I'm 39. How old are you now?
20, I just turned 30 this year. Yeah, just turned 30.
Cool. So I'm telling you right now, 30s are awesome. I'm super excited about 40s. 20s were fun. Pro athletics, travel the world, had fun, beat people up. Good career. 30s are great because I've learned about myself. I've built a lot of relationships, opened up a lot of doors, and my companies are doing really well. 40s, it's going to go. But I find that so many people don't understand, put the time in first.
Yeah.
And grow and learn. So when you were growing up, your parents, did they teach you to have this like mindset of like learn to learn and grow, or did you get to find that on your own?
I really found that on my own. And it's interesting to see how my parents are now. I mean, I don't know if they're just getting older or maybe I'm getting wiser. Just I notice the way that they say certain things or like scarcity minded comments and, oh, I saved this much money. I saved $10 on this thing. And I'm like, well, what if you made $1,000 instead? That would be insignificant. So I'm kind of coaching them in a way. I gave my mom the book Mindset, and she's like, I don't know if you read Mindset by Carol Dweck. Tom Bilyeu from Impact Theory, he's a huge fan of that. It talks about the growth mindset versus the fixed mindset.
Yep. I've watched the videos.
Grow, right?
Yeah.
The videos so you can always grow. His videos are awesome. And so I gave that to my mom, and she's like pointing to my dad, like, he's got a lot of fixed mindset comments. He thinks he knows it all. He doesn't need to learn anything, and that you're kind of the way you are. And so they never really gave me those kinds of things. Sure, they loved me. They helped me. They tried to help me on homework. But at a certain level, like even they didn't really know what my calculus homework was, right? So I fell into entrepreneurship after I quit the corporate job and I started reading books like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, 4-Hour Work Week. And that's where I kind of took on those mentors that I never met through their books, through their knowledge. Of course, you can go the YouTube route or the podcast route, and now you're down the rabbit hole of, wow, anything's possible. You can think it, speak it, believe it, receive it, all those types of mindset shifts. And now I feel like in a way, my mom says that I'm her mentor because she watches all my content and she says she's learning so much from me. So I think that it's something that I kind of figured out. I stumbled upon it, dove in head first. And now through my podcast and through my content, I'm able to pass on what I've learned to other people, including my parents. So it's funny how that worked out.
So my father said the same thing to me about a year and a half ago.
Okay.
I designed a belief intelligence training system. So Carol Dweck, I love what she says about fixed and growth mindsets.
Yep.
Then you got Daniel Goldman that does emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
You can have all this stuff, but if my belief is if you don't understand your beliefs that then create your emotions or create your fixed or your growth mindsets or that do like it's a foundation. So I trademarked everything. We got .coms. We're doing some cool stuff. And we created this whole training system. It's called a black belt belief intelligence training. And my dad went through the white, red, and black belt. There's 3 belts. And he's like, where did you learn all this? This is awesome.
He's like, we didn't teach you this, right?
Yeah. I'm like, Dad, you taught me, you gave me the idea on how to learn. Like at 12 years old, you took me to your company and threw me in the bathroom and showed me as a CEO how to clean the bathrooms. And you built work ethic inside of me to want something, and you gave me opportunity.
Right.
It's a blessing, bro.
It is. And that's exactly with my parents. It's like, I don't have anything against them. I'm not saying they were terrible. I mean, I feel like we're at an advantage because they didn't have YouTube. My mom was like, what's the weather outside the other day? And I actually moved in with them recently because I'm selling my house in downtown Houston. So it's weird being back now. I'm like, whoa, my office is my high school bedroom. So I see them more often now. And it's just funny to see them and they'll pop in and ask if I want food or something. And I'm like, I can take care of myself. Right. But they're seeing how much I've grown now because I wake up before everybody else. I'm like, you guys, I'm only here for a little bit. So while I'm here, let me set the example. I'm up at 6, I'm doing my morning routine, I'm meditating. And so my parents are growing a lot and just from being around me. But I can't say that I've learned that from friends and family only. It's been a combination of podcasts, books, YouTube, everything, just being open, being a sponge.
Yep, I'm with you. So it's interesting on that too, because I'm working to retire my dad and hire him.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Dad, leave your company, come work for me, retire. And he's starting to he's like 70 something. And he's like, so it's great. What I love now is I love being able to give back to my parents, right, and add value to my parents, and put my parents up in a water front property here, and while they're in town, being able to add value to their lives because I wipe my own kid's ass and I freaking love it. Absolutely love it, dude. It's like a joy of my day to change awesome. His diaper. But my parents did that for me, right? Your parents did that for you. So it's interesting to look at, different perspective or point of view when we get older.
Absolutely. And then it goes back to you having to wipe your parents eventually. I guess my parents keep telling me that. You need to have kids because when you're old, who's going to take care of you? And I'm like, I'm gonna be so rich. I'm gonna have people who could wipe my ass. I'll just pay them, like we'll figure it out.
Problem is like somebody you pay will not wipe your ass 100%.
The same
like
way. That's so true.
Yeah. It's not the same way.
It's not the same because it's not that unconditional love, right? It's like, oh, you can pay me a little bit more to get that extra bit, right?
5%, the extra 5% of. I'm like, come on, man, use that wifey. Oh man. So let me ask you, where do you see your future? I mean, obviously you're coaching, you're supporting people, you're growing an industry, you're investing, you're building a good market and good relationships. Where do you see you at 40 or 50 years old, with like, giving your time, building your treasure, obviously, and your income and everything else. And what would you do with all that?
That's a great question. And it's crazy because I never really thought of that stuff until recently, right? I mean, I went through college and worked in oil and gas, and I thought I made it. When I got to the oil and gas job, I was like, oh, this is it. I got my degree. I'm here. Never did I ever plan 5 years out, 10 years out. What does my future look like? I'm like, oh, I just work here, save up money, buy a house, get a car, get married, have a kid. And that's life, right? American dream. Yeah. And so only now am I starting to think, and I have a vision board and everything. I look at it daily. I just meditated earlier and I visualized, what does my perfect life look like? Not to not be happy with like what I have now. I'm very grateful for everything I have, but I'm hungry to get to the next level. And so my future, I see way more than just being like a real estate agent or just a realtor. I understand that there's more than just transactional income. I want to build, software and have a coaching business where people have like a mastermind monthly. I'm giving a lot of time for free right now. I haven't quite monetized it all, but I really love helping people. Even getting on a 30-minute coaching call, like I mentioned earlier, where I don't charge, it feels good afterwards. Now, it would be awesome if I could do that and add value and make more of a living from my podcast and my coaching versus real estate alone. And so that's the direction that I'd like to go towards. But overall, just impacting people positively, being a coach, being a mentor, author, speaker, that whole thing where you come out with a book and you tour, that's what I see for myself after COVID and stuff. When conferences are happening again, I can totally see myself speaking in front of people, motivating people to take action. My tagline for my podcast is less dreaming, more doing. So I'm always about stop waiting, stop dreaming about it. What do you want to do? Go do it today.
Bro, I love it. I like how you're not attached, but you have goals. And because a lot of people I find become attached, and when they don't hit something right off the bat, they make themselves feel like crap.
Right. It's tough as an entrepreneur. I mean, you set goals for yourself, you put them on Facebook. If you don't hit them, it sucks. It doesn't feel good. Like, oh, I didn't make $1 million by 30, for example. I just turned 30 in August. I'm like, well, crap. But I had my biggest real estate month last month, right? So I'm getting somewhere. This is working. That's the most money I had ever made in a single month. It's not $1 million, but I can see the progress. So I love what you said there, how I'm not really tied to the outcome. I'm really trying to just have like disinterested work in a way where I love it, but I'm not tied to the outcome. I think that's like a Buddhist quote that I heard from interviewing someone. They talked about that. When you're not tied to the outcome and you're just having fun and your work is play, the outcomes that you want start to happen. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'm just showing up, having fun, doing these kinds of calls and seeing where the world takes me.
Bro, I absolutely love what you're up to. I'm excited about Houston in February. We'll have some fun.
For sure.
I'd love for you to leave with like one piece. Because I find that like the significance you brought today, it adds a ton of value, not only your life, my life, but other people's. But I find that a lot of people put success over significance, and then they wonder why their heart is all about stuff or money versus giving and caring, even about themselves, right? Giving to themselves, caring about themselves. It's interesting. It's more about stuff and extrinsic. So I'd love for you to give like one piece of advice that people today can think about, process, and then if they choose to, they can implement in their life.
Absolutely. So going off of that, I would say to invest in people and experiences. Like I love investing my time in others. It's such a good feeling to see that a 30-minute conversation with like an 18-year-old kid who just started listening to my podcast can change the trajectory of their life for the better. And similarly, if you invest in experiences, I had lunch with someone yesterday. We